I want to welcome you to the Transit Coalition dinner meeting. This is an interesting, exciting topic because usually we have like 10 or 20 no-shows and only down to about 5 no-shows, which is pretty amazing. Anyways, just to let you know, the Transit Coalition is a nonprofit. We deal with transportation advocacy, goods movement, land use planning, and one of the projects that we were involved with was Walt. This is the San Fernando Valley rail project between the San Fernando Valley and West LA, and then we did another map showing it going all the way down to the South Bay to Long Beach. And this is up on our Transit Coalition website. So as things go with the world of Metro, some pieces of this came about. Tonight, Walt Davis is going to speak about the segment from Sylmar to Van Nuys Boulevard and the Orange Line. He's going to talk to you about that project because it's got funding finally. It's got a decision, locally preferred alternative, and Walt's going to talk to you about that in a few minutes. In addition to that, we developed this back in 2011, so we had some public, when the Daily News called me, it was 2011, I pointed out that we had gotten 11 neighborhood councils to say they actually wanted some transit here in the Valley in West LA. And because the Texas Transportation Institute would always quote and say that San Fernando Valley wasn't interested in any transit, especially north and south. And with 11 neighborhood councils with signed petitions that we wanted, changed the thinking even of the newspapers. The Valley does want it. The Van Nuys Neighborhood Council and everywhere else approved it. So just so you know about the history on this. And I will mention, if you haven't heard about this Proposition 6 as money that pays for transportation projects. I didn't bring the flyers this month, but I'll bring them next month. This affects everybody in this room that's got a job. If the half-cent transportation tax were to go away, it would take away about $5 billion or more per year in funding. And one of the things this funds is structural bridges. We have something like, in the state of California, something like 200 bridges that don't meet structural standards. Some of them have been retrofitted. They really need to be brought up to strength. And the funding from Proposition 6 has got all sorts of projects for anybody in the industry itself. So it's really important. There's fact sheets on this, and you should be aware of it, because some people say take away 12 cents a gallon, and you know the difference is a year ago I was paying, in addition to the 12 cents a gallon, I was also paying $1 a gallon less, which is just strictly oil company revenue. It's $1 a gallon. That doesn't go to fix the roads. It doesn't go to build projects. It doesn't go to fix potholes or infrastructure. It's just $1 a gallon that I'm paying more this year than last year. Last year I drove 50,000 miles, so it's not as if I don't know the costs on this. And the folks that don't like the 12 cents a gallon focus on the other piece that's insignificant, because the oil companies will do exactly as they did when other taxes were put in. You won't see the 12 cents a gallon go away. They'll just absorb it in their costs. So much for the commercial. Transit Coalition, we've got dinner meetings coming up, and some of the dinner meetings coming up soon. On September 6th, we have the West Santa Ana branch. And those that don't know about it, we're going to have our speaker will talk about it. And there's also Dave, can you hold up that little scorecard there? There's these cards here, and this is the West Santa Ana branch's, the group, the Orange Line Development Authority. They're having a 2-day seminar. So there's a card here at our giveaway table. We have all sorts of nice things to give away for anybody who have family, kids, grandkids. We've got training whistles, lanyards, whatnot. And there's that event. And so on, like I say, September 6th, our next dinner is on the West Santa Ana branch. Then after that, on September 29th, we've got, whatever the last Thursday in September is, 27th or 29th, we've got, I think it's Rick Moore. He's going to talk about transit projects, Metro transit projects. Rick Me, that's it. Sorry about that.
That's
Senior
okay.
moment,
That's my
Beth.
boss, so.
Good, somebody knows. Anyways, Rick Mead's going to talk about, Metro's got probably 20 or 30 significant projects where they're moving through process. So Rick is going to give an overview on that because he takes care of all that. Then after that in October, we've got Metro Regional Rail, and the Director of Regional Rail will be here. And after that, we've got innovative, in November we've got innovative, Josh Shank is going to come to talk about innovative activities at Metro. So we've got 4 or 5 meetings planned in advance. If any of the companies here, if you can go back to your CEO or whatever, we could use some sponsors because as a nonprofit, we cannot increase our programs if we don't have some extra funding. So we'd appreciate your thoughts if you could go back to your CEOs and help us out there. So that's that. So now tonight, we have our speaker, Walt Davis. And then as a preview, an interesting preview, after Walt Davis hands the project over, he's going to hand it over to Monica Bourne. I met Monica on the Expo line way back. I think I worked on the Expo line for 16 or 17 years, so it's been a long time. So some people, we've been here for a long time. Walt's been here for many, many years too. It was like 93 or something like that. Well, it's not that. I mean, I'm getting older too. I'm still older than you guys. But we've been here for a long time, and we've been putting these projects together. And it's good to see that the network is going forward. If we get the Hollywood from Hollywood and Highland to Crenshaw filled in, we're going to have a very cool network with lots of intersecting stations, so a lot of good things. Anyways, I'm not going to give you a heavy bio on Walt, but Walt, among other things, was with the United States Marine Corps. So was that Semper Fi or something like that? And so Walt's really a disciplined guy. He takes care of doing things, and he's been doing this project for a long time, and he's done some other projects in the valley. And where are you going to go next?
I've been married to this project for at least another 7 months. So
God, okay, don't want to move it too quickly. So Walt's going to be speaking tonight, and he's going to go about half hour, 30, 40 minutes with presentation. And then there's questions and answers, and he'll answer all your questions and whatever you may have there. So there's a lot of intrigue about this project. So without further ado, Walt. One other thing that I could mention, we have a couple people who are my friend Ezekiel Henshaw is in the back of the room. Raise your hand, Ezekiel. Ezekiel is just got out of college. He's working for one of the railroad companies as an engineer, but he is looking for engineering opportunities. So if anybody's looking for a young engineer, Ezekiel is right here. And then Richard is here somewhere in the orange shirt, I think. Richard's back there. He's a surveyor. He's a retired surveyor with 33 years of service with the County of Orange. And so if anybody's looking for a qualified survey person, Richard can help, and he's in the back there. He's got cards. So that's so much for all the introductions. And Walt, come on up and
thank you so
talk
much.
about the San Fernando Valley and rail. Thank you.
I'm flattered and overwhelmed by the amount of interest and the number of people that are here. This is bigger than most of my public hearings that we had. Thank you so much. I'm flattered. Before I jump into it, I've been the project manager of this project for about 5 years now. We hope to move a little bit faster than that. When we first started the project, we thought it was going to be BRT, but we're going to start meeting with the community, and they told us that we wanted something different. We didn't have the money, so we've been kind of lingering and doing a lot of things. Generally, an environmental document, 1.5 years, 2 years. This one's been lingering for about 5 years, but it's progressing. I was the PM on the Metro side. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce the PM on the consultant side, Joel Walter from KOA, who's done a great job for us. I like to say a good consultant makes me look good, and Joel did a good job of making me look good throughout this project, giving me the information that I need, the technical expertise, the graphics, and other things that culminated last month, or I say the month before last. In June, we went to the board. We took the project to the board, and for any of you who were there, it's probably one of the best receptions that we've gotten for a project from the board. My senior executive officer said it was a love fest. And that's what we like to have. Most of the comments we got from the public were positive. I only had, I think, 2 people in opposition, and one of those people turned out to be a farmer whose property wouldn't be impacted. He just got confused and thought he would be impacted. Actually, he was on the other side of the track. So we only had 1 person in opposition, so we were able to talk about it beforehand. But in June, they came out, they selected LRT as the preferred alternative with 14 stations and at grade. I emphasize at grade because we did look at a subway option for 2.5 miles between Sherman Way and Roscoe. But what we found is that only saved travel about 2 minutes of travel time, and would add about $1.4 billion to the cost of the project. So when staff went to the board, we did make the recommendation that we keep it at grade to keep it within the budget that we had, and our board agreed with us. And right now the project is at grade for the full 14 miles. To give you an idea of the alignment, it does extend from the Metro Orange Line north in the median of Van Nuys Boulevard as far as San Fernando Road. At San Fernando Road, for the last 2.5 miles, it would transition into the road right-of-way that's currently there to show the right-of-way with Metrolink and UP trains between Van Nuys Boulevard and the Silmar San Fernando Metrolink station. I want to emphasize that it's inclusive of 14 stations. Generally, we like the stations spaced at about a mile apart to maintain operations efficiencies. But with this project, because all of the major intersections had east-west service, as a part of this project, we're not going to build any new parking ride lots. We're dependent upon that east-west service for transfers. And we didn't want to cut out any of the east-west bus services, so we have more stations than we generally like, but we think that will help ridership. At some of our community meetings, people didn't believe that we could do rail on Van Nuys Boulevard, so I'd like to pull out this 1950s picture. It is actually on Van Nuys Boulevard, the old streetcar that was pulled out in the 1950s. And it catches some people by surprise. Better perspective of the project, and we used this illustration a couple months ago when we applied for some state funds, some SB1 funds, and we awarded $402 million of state funds. And one of the reasons the states liked it is because we're nestled in between the 405, the 170, the 5 freeway, the 118, and the 210 freeways, and the idea that this possibly can pull traffic off of those freeways. I also like to use this Google map just to show the densities of the San Fernando Valley that we have for this project. And I was surprised to hear that the densities for our study area is greater than the population of Atlanta and greater than the population of Miami. So some serious densities, and I think that's one of the reasons that when modeled at the range were quite good. 400,000 people reside in the study area. The second busiest bus route in the San Fernando Valley, for perspective, about 20 to 24,000 people board on an average weekday on Van Nuys. The next busiest is Sepulveda, where about 9,000 boardings on an average weekday. The only alignment that beats it in the San Fernando Valley is the Metro Orange Line, which is a dedicated alignment, and it doesn't beat it by that much. I like to say we're transforming what's going on in the valley with the passage of Measure M. Not only is the Orange Line currently in place with high-speed bus rapid transit service, our project, which is fully funded, which is going to be the eastern San Fernando Valley. The Orange Line extension to Canoga is already in place. And then a couple other projects. I think people probably heard of the Sepulveda Pass Border project. My next door neighbor, Corey Zelmer, is working diligently, and we meet quite often. Actually, I told him one of the most common comments that we received in the valley is that people wanted to see a one-seat ride all the way from Silmar San Fernando Metro Station to LAX. And he's expecting a number of similar comments, so one of the alternatives he's looking at is LRT, in addition to, I think he's looking at Metrolink. I think he's here last month, so I won't talk about anything he's doing, but we're looking forward to one day connecting with him, whether it's a seamless connection or otherwise, taking the project down to the west side and to LAX. Up here you have the North San Fernando Valley BRT study, looking at a number of options to go east-west across the Northern Valley with a dedicated bus rapid transit service. And then over here, right now, if you want to go to Pasadena, you have to go south to the downtown LA and then back up, either the Gold Line or a bus service. So we're looking at bus rapid transit service, possibly using the 118 freeway and connecting North Hollywood to the Gold Line. So a lot of interesting projects going in the valley. Our project is amongst the first to be coming out, but these are Measure M projects. The mayor would like to see several in place by 2028. He calls it 28 by 28. So I think we can safe to say we'll be changing the way people travel in the San Fernando Valley. And I think you'll see those changes within the next 10 or 15 years. My pretty pictures. What will trains look like in the San Fernando Valley? And this is at the Marvin Browdy Center. We actually looked at two trains, low floor and high floor. This is the low floor train, but it's a great picture, so I'm using it anyway just to give you an idea of what they might look like in front of the Marvin Browdy Center with the overhead catenary wires. One of the things I want to emphasize, the City of LA owns Van Nuys Boulevard, is the owner-operator of the street, so we can't do anything without their authorization. Van Nuys Boulevard is 3 lanes in each direction, basically from the Orange Line north to about Parthenia. With our project, it will go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes in each direction, and they'll lose a lot of the right-hand turn pockets, and they'll lose a lot of on-street parking. But the argument that we made is that we're the mitigation to our own impact. What we said is that we're going to have a 3-car train set that can accommodate approximately 400 riders, and we'll be operating at about a 5-minute headway. If you do that by the hour, we can accommodate about 4,800 people per hour, whereas a single outer lane, the Caltrans Highway Control Manual says about 783 people can be accommodated per hour. So we made the argument that we are mitigation to our own impact, and we're supported by the state, because the state isn't looking at level of service as much anymore and looking at throughput. So it's a good argument for the state as well. And also, to be real honest with the City of LA, with Salida Reynolds and with the mayor, they're a lot more amenable to the impacts to traffic and amenable to mass transit projects in their streets. And we've been receptive to a better response when we met with them and talked about the impacts of those streets, and have been very pleased. I'll go a little bit further north. I believe this is up to Ventura Boulevard. I'm sorry, Victory Boulevard. Some of the things I want to show, the overhead catenary wire, and also really big, important to us is the channelization. The trains, I think everybody here, most of your consultants know it takes quite a while for the train to stop, so our operations people wanted me to make sure I had this in my rendering just to show that we need to control where pedestrians cross, that on Van Nuys Boulevard people run across the street wherever they can. We're going to limit that. In some senses, I got this comment I thought was very good for the community to recognize that we are dissecting the community in a way, because you're only be able to cross at major intersections. There are 80 signals on Van Nuys Boulevard. That's a lot. We are going to key intersect a lot of those intersections because we don't want the trains to have to be looking for pedestrians or roadway crossings. So people are going to have to walk a little bit further to cross the intersection. But the environmental document is a disclosure document. And I emphasize this at all the community meetings, and the overwhelming response that we got at community meetings is when it came to start. The community meetings were also like this. Most of the people that showed up at them were very much in support of the project and very much toward LRT. In fact, during the public hearing, we received 900 comments. About 750 of them were yes on LRT. So it was nice to get that, and nice to be able to deliver what the community wanted. Move up to Paxton. This is on the road right-of-way that we will share with Metrolink. Metrolink will be, I think we're looking at north, so Metrolink will be on the northern side of us, and then we'll be able to maintain the Class 1 bike path that's to the immediately adjacent to San Fernando Road. We did a rendering here, but to be honest with you, this is probably our least popular station. We just didn't have it that much on San Fernando Road, and we didn't want to go all the way from San Fernando to Maclay without a station. You have a Best Buy, you have a Costco, we have some big box centers here, but our modeling indicated that ridership wouldn't be that good here. And then towards the end of the line, as you get into the city of San Fernando, this project only goes to the cities of LA and San Fernando. And the city of San Fernando was a great champion of the project. They're a little bit concerned about right-of-way acquisitions, but we were able to eliminate most of those. This is how the station, how the alignment might look as it passes through at Maclay. And this way, this north, so this is the Metrolink tracks, and then the bike path adjacent to it. It's kind of interesting, the bike path switches from the south side of the street to the north side of the street when you get to San Fernando Road. I mean, when you get to the city of San Fernando. The existing conditions on Van Nuys Boulevard. And as I mentioned before, an environmental document is a disclosure document, so when I go out to the community, I do tell them. There is going to be an impact to traffic, and it is going to be significant, and it's going to be an overriding consideration because there's not that many things that we can do to mitigate, minimize, or avoid those impacts. The San Fernando Valley is kind of a grid, but then you have Metrolink going through and bisecting the valley and kind of odd angle. So a lot of the streets come to a T intersection, so it comes to Metrolink. So there's not easy transitions to a street 2 or 3 blocks to the east or west that goes all the way through. You have to go about a mile to the west to Sepulveda or a mile to the east to Lancashire to get a through street that goes all the way through. But again, we disclose this, that right now you have 3 lanes in each direction. You got a continuous left-hand turn pocket that enables you not only to take left-hand turns in those secondary intersections, but all those businesses. And we told those businesses that from now on, people have to go to the major intersection, navigate a U-turn in order to access your business by taking the right-hand turn. And again, I was amazed that we got very little opposition. They are excited about light rail, and they want it. Although I will tell you that Monica Rodriguez, when we met with the councilwoman's office, said a lot of times they don't believe it until they have tractors in front of their own businesses. So that's when they start screaming and yelling, and they get a little bit more vocal. I included this right here just to show you our boardings. The wider the line is, the more boardings that we anticipate. This is upwards of 2,000 to 3,000 boardings a day, and the color red indicates less than 10 miles per hour, yellow about 11 or 12 miles per hour, the average speeds of buses. So most of our ridership is basically from Parthenia south to the Metro Orange line, with the Metro Orange line being our biggest transfer point. When the project first started, we envisioned it going down to Ventura Boulevard, the Sherman Oaks area. But during our project scoping with Sherman Oaks area, they weren't nearly as excited about the project. A lot of the auto dealerships on Van Nuys weren't very excited about the project. And when we studied it more, actually the technical analysis didn't support going that far south. Ridership drops off dramatically. The roadway widens to about 160 feet. There's not as much traffic till you get down to the 101 freeway. So it kind of justified only going from the Orange Line Road to the San Fernando Metrolink station. But those are the existing conditions on Van Nuys Boulevard. For light rail transit, we had to select a location for a maintenance and storage facility. We did, when we started the project, we identified 9 potential locations. We're looking for a location that's 25 to 30 acres in size. And to be honest with you, that's probably more than we need. But we wanted it to be bigger than we needed in case the project expands, or in case the Orange Line converts to light rail, that they'd have a place that they could locate their cars as well. So we looked at 25 to 30 acres instead of 15 to 20 acres, and that's what we environmentally cleared. We also looked at easy to access. It had to be in an industrialized area and had to be within a quarter mile of alignment. We identified 9 sites, and we narrowed them down to the 3 most promising sites that we named, option A, option B, and option C. Which turned out not to be the best name because the people in option A were just incensed, saying, obviously we're your first choice because you named it option A. So you really can't win, but my ego said we have to think of a different name when we name different options in the future so people don't think that they're the #1 option. They're actually all evenly considered. But for those of you who have been following the project, there's option A people. They put up a big stink. They did a great job of opposing the project. And because of its proximity, to be real honest, it probably was the most ideal location for it in myself. But this is when the project got real. When we started coming up with these businesses and saying, we're from the government and we have a better history of property than we've had for this property for the last 30 years for the family-owned business. That's when the project got real and we started rustling some feathers. In fact, I just added a slide to give it some emphasis. This is about 30 feet high and about 80 feet long, and this business drew a painting showing Metrolink coming out of the wrecking ball, destroying all the businesses from option A. This was a sign at option A. These flyers show probably at least 50 of them on almost every business in option A. We went out and we met with them a number of times and talked about the possibilities of what we could do. And as a little sidebar, they really embrace us. You've got to know what we do here. And they showed us the businesses. There'd be one parcel, but it had 25 garages. Each one of the garages were individual businesses. And just let us know what we do disrupting. And it made a very good case for why we probably shouldn't pick this site. And they showed me a whole bunch of warehouses, a bunch of cabinet makers, and it was kind of interesting. Auto dealerships, not auto dealerships, but wrecking dealerships but I went to this one nondescript warehouse, and they said, we want to show you this one. They opened the garage door and took me in, and this was what's inside. I was like, what the heck is this doing here? But that's only for the cars. There's about 30 cars. So that's where some very rich man keeps his antique and Lamborghinis and Ferraris.
Was it Jay Leno?
But it's just like, after seeing all these auto body places, motorcycle places, and restoration places, and then all of a sudden this, right in the middle of it all, right across the street from a marijuana place. You never know what's going to be there. It was interesting to find. So the main storage facility we finally decided upon was option B, which is just to the south of the Ventura Metrolink line and just to the west of Van Nuys Boulevard. This hasn't been solidified, but we just drew a line here showing how we might access the yards, but in the PD, they'll be re-looking at that, and how best to access it. Only 37 parcels, and one of the good things about these parcels, instead of being 30 garages and 30 individual businesses, they're mostly just all one business. So you're only dealing with one person, and it's a little bit easier to deal with them, a little bit easier to move with them. To be honest with you, those 30 businesses, a lot of them weren't up to code. So they're getting below market rates for those garages because they weren't up to code. If we relocated them, we'd have to bring them up to code to city standards, and we wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't be able to get the rent that they were getting and enjoying at those locations. So it's kind of nice that we would have to relocate them. For this alternative, Councilwoman Nuri Martinez came out and says a letter of support, which was very helpful. It's in the neighborhood of Panorama City. We got a letter of support from a letter from Panorama City, and Van Nuys neighborhood account, which also has a letter of support. Is the only option that impacted no homes. The closest homes are right over here on the other side of the Homer Wash, a good distance away from us, which is really nice. And I think a lot of people saw this as an opportunity to really develop it. To show you another slide, one of the reasons people weren't as opposed is because that option has a serious homeless problem. There's tent cities there. There's all kinds of needles when you walk it. It's just not a very nice area. So I think some of those businesses, when we approached them, even though they were opposed to it at first, like kind of started taking to the idea of having the government relocate them and paying all the expenses for them to relocate to an area that might be nicer. I mean, I've been going into businesses thinking I'm going to get screamed and yelled at, but they've been really kind of nice, like, well, tell us what you're selling here, you know, where might you move us, how close can we be, can we be a part of finding that location, can we hire our own people? Add to that, we had a gentleman's club, we had this recycling center that I think Councilwoman Nuri Martinez was very happy to possibly see move out of that area, and, you know, we're doing pretty nice maintenance storage facilities, and I think she wanted to see something nicer like that in her district, and took to it. So we got a little bit lucky on MSF that we did find a site that the community was for, and that the businesses that we just placed weren't as adamant as opposed as we thought they would be. Why is this project taking us 5 years to complete? Well, when we started this project, we actually inherited it from the city of Los Angeles. They looked at it first, and they thought that it would be a natural extension of the Metro Orange Line. When the Metro Orange Line opened, we thought it would carry about 7,000 people on an average weekday, approximately 7,000 boardings. It was around 12,000 on opening day, and up to 20,000 within the first 3 or 4 years. So it very much exceeded what we expected. And we actually thought from here in downtown that everybody loved the Orange Line. They'd like to see an extension of Van Nuys Boulevard. So that's what we envisioned. And we set aside in our long-range transportation plan $170 million for the project. But lo and behold, when we went out there and started having our scoping meetings, we found out that people weren't as happy with the Orange Line as we thought they were. Buses were overcrowded. Buses were bunching up, and sometimes we waited 10 or 15 minutes for a bus. They pointed out to us that there's 39% of the population of the city of Los Angeles and only have one station in North Hollywood. And I know every district says there'll be a shortchange, but I think they had a better argument than some of the other districts about being shortchanged. Although I did point out to them that Orange Line was supposed to be like rail and they ran us out of town, so they could have had a few more stations. But when we got a little bit further in the project, and the community was yelling for light rail, and our technical analysis was supporting light rail, but we only had $170 million for the project, we kind of went into a lull, kind of treading water, doing refinements to the study, and doing what we needed to do, but paying attention to other things until, lo and behold, in 26, which gave us enough money to do an at-grade LRT system. So we're able to revive the document. We were actually ready to go up the next day because the document was ready, and our problem was that FTA refused to read the document. They refused to spend a lot of time on a document which we didn't have funding for, and they had an awful lot of other documents to read. So we had to wait a year for them to read, do a legal sufficiency review, give us comments, respond to those comments, so that we could complete not only EIR for the local and state money, but the EIS in case federal funds become available. And I emphasize that because it irritated me because there's no federal money on the project right now, and I don't think a lot of federal money from this administration is coming our way. We don't know our future, but our executives were adamant that just in case, we have to do the EIS so that the project is able to accept those funds if they do come our way down the road. But we do have $1.3 billion. The project is fully funded, and we are ready to move forward with it. Some complementary initiatives. When we started this project, it wasn't our first mile, last mile. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, our board passed a motion, which I think is phenomenal, saying basically that our stations isn't the origin and destination places that people want to go. That there's a lot of origin destinations within a half-mile walking distance of our stations and within a mile of bicycling, and that we need to take those places into account, and we need to do our first mile, last mile. We need to set aside 3% of the project cost, add 30% engineering, to go to a first mile, last mile plan, where we look at what are the origin destination points that are in close proximity, and what can we do to encourage people to walk and ride to our stations. Is it better lighting? Is it better pedestrian improvements? Is it landscaping, security, or whatever? And that we work with community-based organizations, not only identify those locations, but to identify what improvements we put in place to encourage walking or biking. Something I was surprised about, they pointed out to me that people that use our stations, 85% of them get to our stations by means other than automobile. But only 15% of the people that use our light rail drive there and park. And we learned that on the Orange Line. On the Orange Line, we've got these big parkway lots, and a lot of them are filled with used cars. We run them out to some of the car dealerships because we might as well utilize them, but they're empty. There's hundreds and hundreds of spaces empty. So we really have to go out there. We used our car dealerships, not used cars, brand new cars for Keys and some other auto dealers on Van Nuys, just to fill some of those spaces and fill up parking for people that drive. So for the East San Fernando Valley Transit Corridor, we're not building any new parking ride lots. We have a parking ride lot at the Orange Line, at the Van Nuys Station for the Ventura Line, and the Van Nuys Station for the Antelope Valley Line, and no other parking ride lots. But we do have a parking czar at Metro, and what he's told us is after we open, we're going to watch it. And if we start having parking problems at any of the stations, then we'll survey the area, see if there's any churches that only use their parking lot on Sundays or any other businesses that might want to lease their properties to Metro. It's a lot cheaper way of meeting the needs of parking rather than building a new parking lot and taking away the businesses that are currently there in order to build that parking lot where that might not be filled up. So it's a different way of looking at it. Instead of building it, take a chance on them not coming, wait and see what the need is and build it and find locations after the project's built. The next thing, when we started this project, the Metro Orange Line was at grade. It's still at grade, but now we are going to grade separate the Orange Line at Van Nuys Boulevard. Before for the project, we're going to stop at Bessemer and have an at-grade connection with the Metro Orange Line. With them grade separated, opportunities out there for us to do a more direct connection, vertical connection with the Metro Orange Line. I see some people taking pictures. I want to emphasize this is draft. We have shared it with some people with our board, but we're just looking at a number of different concepts of what we could do, and this is one location the station could be. We're looking at other opportunities right now. Might show that we're going to have a bike lane for this project, elevated bike lane. But we're taking bikes a lot more seriously. My senior executive officer is an avid bicyclist, and he insisted that if we were grade separated here, he wanted the bike lane grade separated as well, so bicycles get across the valley in an expedited manner as well. I think a lot of people are interested in PE, so from this slide, for the next 5, I'm going to turn over the monitor to talk about PE.
Thanks, Walt. Good evening. The last time I think I did this was over 5 years ago on Expo 1. I might be a little rusty, but I've been in your shoes, so I kind of know, I think, what you guys are looking for. So, again, my name is Monica Bourne. I'm the project manager working for program management for Metro. Been working on metro projects for several years, but now I finally have the badge, so I'm like, woo. But anyways, so the RFP for East San Fernando Valley, it's coming out this month. Okay, but don't hold me to it, but yes, it's coming out this month, okay? And basically, we're going to have the selection process done by the end of this year, and TP early next year. When Walt gets the document certified, we'll hopefully be taken off shortly thereafter. Period of performance is almost 10 years, and I'll get into it. We've got basically 3 phases of the work that we're doing in this contract. Cost plus fixed fee. I was trying to do it as a lump sum. A lot of consultants told me I was crazy, so we finally came around. Cost plus fixed fee. We're assuming right now it's going to be a design build contractor that's going to come on board, but there's also potential for a P3 on this one. So this is one of the 3 projects that we're looking at for a P3. So you've got West San Ana Branch, East San Fernando, and Sepulveda Pass. Okay, let's see if I can figure this out. All right, there we go. 3 phases of work for this contract, starting with phase 1, which is the PE procurement documents. Approximately about 24 months for the PE, and then followed by another 6 months with the procurement documents. Overall approach to the PE, 30% design level. The idea is that we are trying to do what we can on this design in order to support the procurement process. So the PE, basically 30% in some cases, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but again, it's part of the procurement documents for the design builder. The 6 months for the procurement documents there would be basically supporting the technical documents. We're going to have legal counsel on board to write the contract for the most of it, but again, the PE consultant would help out on the technical side of it. During that 24-month period, lots of coordination with Metro. Please don't work in silos. Please don't work in vacuums. I want to know what's going on. I've been doing these types of projects for a while. I've got some ideas of how I like to do things. You guys know how to do stuff. Let's work together. Don't really want you guys off working in your offices and then come into my office and say, ta-da, we're done. No, I'm going to tell you, forget it. Right, Laura? So we're not going to be doing that here. Lots of third-party coordination, too. We've got City of LA, of course, City of San Fernando, going to be working with them. Joel and Walt have already started that process. We're going to be picking it from there and continuing on with it. Again, we want to have a good preliminary engineering design that can fit into the document so that the design builder can provide us a good cost, have a good competition on that end of it too. Any questions about phase 1? Pretty straightforward? No? Okay. Phase 2, bid support, approximately 12 months. Time frame here, and again, it's going through the design build process there of getting the design builder on board, getting potentially a P3 consultant on board. If we do go through, P3 contractor on board. If we do go through the P3 contracting process, we'll have to adjust this contract as appropriate. As far as knowing if we're going to have a P3 or not, I'm hoping by the end of this year if we're going to go in that direction or not. But I'm waiting for OEI to do their magic and come up with a good business case on why we should go one way or the other. OEI, Office of Extraordinary Innovation, just in case. Okay. Phase 3, design support during construction, approximately 6 years there. That's the bulk of the work, hence the reason why we're also doing cost plus fixed fee. So phase 1, the PE, again, looking for a draft package and a final package. There we're doing something a little bit unique. The systems work. We have a systems consultant on board, right, Chris? And LTK is doing that for us. So the system side of it is going to be done by them. You'll be working in coordination with the systems group. They're going to be providing information on corrosion control, train control, communication, traction power. Is that right, Chris? Yes? Okay, good. And then also they're going to be supporting the development of the operational plan, just making sure that what Walt has done through the environmental process, take it a little bit further in the analysis and make sure we can run it at the headways that we're talking about running. And then also with the PE consultant, because we've got an extensive area, 6.7 miles of street running, making sure that can also be done out there with the existing traffic signal system out there, or the traffic signal system out there that we're going to be adjusting, modifying to what we need to make our system run out there. As far as utilities, right now there was some investigation done through the environmental process. We're going to take it a step further with the idea of potentially doing an advanced utility relocation package there. So the PE consultant will come on board, do investigation of what's out there, what's existing, come up with what they believe are impacts, and then we'll decide from there what potentially we could advance the design to come up with another package to have another contractor come on board and move some of those utilities out of the way. On Van Nuys Boulevard, it's going to be tight. We're going to have our 2 tracks out there for the LRT, and then if we have to move utilities out of the way, then we've got 2 lanes of traffic on either side. There may be potential for having to take overhead lines and put them underground. It's going to get crowded pretty fast. So we're going to be looking at that to see what we can do. Geotech and hazmat, again, we're trying to do some of that upfront analysis now through the PE consultant. We've got some ideas of where we think some of those borings should be taken, where we think the phase 1 dictates where there's going to be a phase 2 analysis. So again, through the PE consultant process, go out there and actually do those field investigations. And because it's a cost plus fixed fee, we're just asking you guys to price out basically how much do you think it would cost to do investigation of what's existing out there, and then once you get on board, then we would negotiate what needs to be done and the cost at that time. Stations will be the Metro system-wide station design, so that's basically the kit of parts. First last mile improvements, so what Walt comes up with during his study right now, coming up with options, we're going to take that and expand or actually advance the design there so that we can get a better idea of what we can do with the cities. So this would be like the first time where Metro is taking this effort this early on. The idea is still a work in progress within our first last mile people. But again, the idea is that we'll be advancing the design so that we can work closely with the city, come up with a price, and then decide what's going to be in the design build package and what's potentially going to be done by the city themselves. Maintenance facility, we've already talked, Walt's already talked about that, advancing the design there. Right, like safety coordination, that's another thing that hasn't always been done up front. So working with our committee there to figure out what kind of, or what fire hydrants need to be and where they need to be and that sort of thing, so we can incorporate that into the design build documents. Rate crossing applications, I'd like the PE consultant to carry it all the way through so we can get the applications basically set up and get them into PUC, because right now they're going through a little bit of a different process. It's going to be assigned to a judge. The judge then will take 12 months, 18 months to go through the approval process. So, but in order to get those applications in, we've got to get the cities, we've got to get MetroLink, we've got to get us all on the same page with PUC and get the applications in, and then the judge can start doing his job there. And then, like I said, also prepare the procurement documents. Any questions about phase 1? That good, huh? Straightforward, yeah? Okay, all right. Phase 2, bid support. Again, this is basically once the contractors are in the procurement process, you'd be helping out with the pre-proposal meetings, answering RFIs, again on the technical side, evaluating ATCs if we have those, evaluating the technical proposals, and then also developing whatever technical documents we might need for the addenda. Any questions there? Okay. Phase 3, design support during construction. Again, this is the bulk of the work. You're basically acting as staff augmentation to Metro. This is where you'd be reviewing submittals that the design builder would be developing, RFIs, non-compliance requirements, attending meetings, reviewing contractors' payments, all of that. We are going to have a separate contract for the construction side, construction management side, so that's where this is not including that. Again, you are on the technical support side during this phase of the work. What we did also in the RFP was give a suggested level of effort there, and just drive the alignment with your proposed project manager and just get them to talk to me about what they think about the project. Let's make sure we're on the same page here. So, but I can't do that. So, all right, now back to you all. Any questions though? Come on, no questions? Yes.
Well, first and last mile was mentioned a number
Yes.
of times, and you referred to interacting with cities or local communities. There is a division or department of Metro that deals with that, is that what I understand?
First, last mile, yes.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
in the planning group, yeah.
Because it seems like one of the issues relating to how many people are going to use it, where they come from,
Yeah.
also connects with the first and last mile. I think, I mean, you're looking at it from the standpoint of comparing it to number of vehicles traveling down the roadway versus, I mean, how many people are in the vehicle versus how many people are, but what you didn't mention was what is the demand within those corridors to come in, which is different than talking about how many people are in the car.
Right.
So I was interested in, that's sort of a marketing analysis type of thing, and has that been part of the study? Do you not understand my, numbers of
Fully
people,
understand it.
And then,
But-
yeah,
and related to
Well, I think
first
that's
and
why-
last mile?
Right, and I think it's when we're looking at the origin and destination points, where people
Yes,
are coming from
exactly.
to, and working with community-based organizations, which is in the contract with the consultant firm right now, to identify them and work with them to
So that's still
identify.
to come? is what
Yes,
you-
that's still,
Ah,
yes.
got it.
That's something we haven't done in the past, and that our board passed with the first last mile. That's the, ideally, we would do that during the environmental clearance, because it wasn't in place when we did the environmental clearance. We're doing it after the fact or the final, so we're doing a little bit late in the game. But actually, we're one of the first projects out of the door and doing it, so we'll be used as a model. How
So
to do it.
part of the team that's doing that is this group called the First and Last Mile group, or is there, are there other, I'm interested in that connection, so maybe we can talk later.
Right.
so, yeah,
Yes, we have City Works Design on contract to do a lot of that work for us.
City.
City Works Design, CWD. And they are going to be initiating an effort real soon. And they won't be doing it in a vacuum, I feel to say. But they'll be working with the community and with community-based organizations. There's a bunch of them, like Corner Beautiful comes to mind, that knows the community and knows where people travel to and from, and where the places people get together. I know you live out there, so you probably hasn't.
Yeah, so,
before we go to the next question, sorry, but just to let you know, I mean, the environmental team, that City Works Design is on that team. They're gonna be out there now with the communities coming up with options. Whatever options they come up with, what I call like a menu list during PE, that's what we're gonna be advancing. So the idea is that they're doing that hard work of trying to figure out what can be done. And then in PE, we just take it a step further to figure out, okay, how does the design gonna work and what kind of cost are we talking about? And then we try to narrow it down, because there is a limit on the budget.
Sure.
So, yeah, and again, it's ultimately trying to figure out what needs to go in the design build contract documents, maybe what needs to be done by the city, and maybe what needs to be later down the road.
And that might be an awful for me. You're supposed to take over, she takes over for the engineering, but with the first mile, last mile, we don't know what they're gonna identify. If they identify anything that requires additional environmental clearance, then planning will stay involved to keep the environmental clearance
Right.
that's needed in order to make sure it works.
so
Sorry, yes, sorry.
I'm actually asking the question, answering his question. I live in that area. I live right here, Van Nuys and Victory, and I can tell you there's enough bicycle traffic, pedestrian traffic, and skateboard traffic to support 3 separate bike shops up and down Van Nuys Boulevard between Victory and Burbank. There's enough skateboards there that I'm definitely not the only person riding a longboard through the Civic Center or to the bus. A lot of people walk. It's a very pedestrian, that Civic Center area from the Orange Line to Victory Boulevard, and even I'd say probably beyond, all the way down to like Van Nolan or Sugar Lake, is very pedestrian oriented. And one of the problems we have right now is a lot of the shops were built with entrances facing the street, but because of parking being in the back, they've redesigned their businesses so that it faces the parking lot, and the street side is like a wall, and it's all backwards right now. But there is a huge market for pedestrian for last mile solutions. I mean, this is built on a streetcar grid, and it's a very walkable neighborhood.
Absolutely.
I just had a couple of quick questions. I know in the previous fact sheet that when we were discussing the multiple options, there was a discussion of mixed flow. Is that light rail still gonna be in part of general traffic? Will traffic be able to flow into that lane or anything to that
No,
effect?
we don't do that.
Okay.
DUC won't allow that, so, it will be dedicated just to the rail portion of it. Wherever there's, crossings, vehicles crossing, pedestrians crossing, it's gonna be controlled. We won't
Yeah, I
have
remember reading in the
gates.
previous documents that the right hands and left hand turns would be very, very limited into that corridor based off of that. And has there been a final word if we're gonna do if you all were gonna do the low floor or the standard light rail, or is that
High floor.
still
The environmental document says high floor.
high floor?
Okay, so I actually want to tack on what Jason's saying and regarding this gentleman's comment about last first mile. So this corridor itself, as a bus corridor, already has healthy ridership from bus riders, about 25,000 riders. So actually, it's actually one of the few metro projects, potential projects that actually has built-in ridership that's already there. When the project's built, most likely the ridership's already there. You can expect at least 20,000 or more people.
Absolutely.
If you look at the LRT or the BRT for Orange Line right now, just that entire corridor, you'll see just tons of people on bikes, walking, on that class 2 area. So I mean, it's definitely got the demand for people who want to walk there or take their bike. It's just constant demand.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of the reasons I asked this is because there's money behind the first and last mile effort, so there could be improvements associated with that.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
I don't have a question on first last mile, but what are the opportunities like that might help as a candidate for B3? You mentioned that OEI are still looking at it, but I'm
Right.
curious if there is a site.
Why
What are
it's
the
a good
opportunities
candidate?
that might make this a candidate for B3?
Yeah, I mean, it's, because the system is separate, right? There's no
Just
overlap.
that one line?
Standalone line, thank you. Standalone line, what else with OEI?
If you
The
actually
way-
did B3, would you convert the orange line at some point? Because
That's
if you're
not-
gonna convert, you're connected when it becomes light rail.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really part of their analysis. When they do their business case, they're looking at, crunching the numbers and seeing, does it work better for someone else to do potential operation, maintenance, maybe finance. I mean, as Walt said, this project we've already got the funding for it. So does it make sense though for someone else to operate and maintain? So,
It makes more sense if you consider it as one giant quarter of Sepulveda Pass. That's when the opportunity really makes sense.
Yeah, hi, has there been a risk assessment for sharing the right of way between, along the Metrolink right of way? Has there been a risk assessment for that?
oh, risk assessment of the portion that's in Metro right of way that shares with Metrolink?
Yeah.
We looked at it, if you want to help me out, Joel, you're welcome to do so. We did receive a letter from Metrolink. The right of way is about 100 feet wide for most of the distance. It does narrow as you go through the city of San Fernando. There's between Brandon and Clay, it narrows to about 65 feet. It necessitates a right of way acquisition, mostly owned by the city of San Fernando. Where Metrolink's going to be separate. We work with Metrolink to find out exactly how much space they needed, how much space needed to be separated from us to stick to their standards. We found that there is enough room. I mean, they have to be a separate alignment. We told them that we're going to move the northern portion of the San Fernando Road right away, which we've done early on as part of the project to make room for our double tracks, and we're going to maintain a single bike lane there. We received a letter from them. Their only main consideration or concern was instead of one set of tracks going through those intersections, there's 3 sets of tracks, and they asked us to do a grade crossing safety study as part of the FEIR, just to make sure that we can get through the 3 sets of lanes and maintain the safety of the autos and pedestrians for, there's 5 intersections, Paxton, Clay, Graham, Jesse, and Hubbard. And we're going to do that with the final FEIR.
As part of the PE contract, we are doing a risk analysis for the whole project. And so that's through Dave Davies, our risk manager here at Metro, has to be the employee. Yeah, we'll be going through that, assisting him with the risk management process there.
I bring it up because of right-of-way incursions on the Gold Line of the freeway, this recent incident in Pittsburgh with a freight train derailment in Littleton, Colorado a few years ago.
Yeah.
Can't be ignored.
Yep, no, definitely not.
Thank you. really impressed with the work that the team has done at Metro. Really has taken to heart a lot of the input that those of us from the Transit Coalition who came up with this concept almost a decade ago, and community members like the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council and other neighborhood councils have provided to Metro. It really seems like the ideas that you are describing reflect the community input. I have two questions. First is about first mile, last mile. You mentioned pedestrian, bike, and roller access, so to speak. To what extent do you anticipate looking at, number one, improvements to bus access for riders coming to this project by bus? Because as you showed in one of your slides, many of the intersections are at F grade or D grade. So the bus service, the east-west bus service that's connecting to this line is already impacted even before we start talking about, signalization and potential crossing changes. So number one, to what extent are you looking at also, maybe bus-only lanes, bus pockets, that sort of thing? And number two, within the first mile, last mile, are you also looking at how housing is going to play into this in terms of pedestrian access? My second question is with regard to the signals. One of the frustrations many riders express right now about the Metro Orange line and the Metro Expo line is that LADOT is basically forcing them to stop at signals, and maybe they get a little bit of signal priority, like 10-second quicker turnaround on the signal cycle. We are fortunate that we now have in Selena Reynolds an LADOT chief who's actually willing to be pro-transit. So to what extent is Metro looking at asking LADOT to have cascading signals so that the trains will not have to necessarily stop without necessarily having crossing guards at every intersection? I know that's a lot.
The second question, we haven't started negotiating with the city as of yet. And we assume that we can average 18 miles per hour, which is very aggressive. So 14 stations, so fingers crossed that we can get enough preemption to allow us to maintain those speeds. We have been briefing LADOT, and one thing I can say is some of the people that would just laugh at us and say no 5 years ago are sitting on their hands now. Because you're right, Selena Reynolds is a lot more receptive to mass transit. She looks at the throughput opportunities. But no, that hasn't been cast in stone. City of LA is the owner operator. It's a big goal for them. There are sections that can be cleaner selected. There is a light right now. A lot of it's residential neighborhoods who are used to being able to take a left-hand turn from residential neighborhoods that are used to taking a right and a U-turn or find an alternate way to get to work or shop or schools. I would love to get preemptive service up and down. I know that it's not going to get it, but we're going to argue and negotiate the best we can with the city of LA to get whatever we can get. That's for your second question. For the first last mile, only BRT system that we're looking at in addition to what I mentioned is the North San Fernando Valley, probably looking at Nordoff with the connection to CSUN and connection to the Canoga extension, the Canoga extension to the Orange line, and with our project. But again, the project manager just gave me a study area because again, we're working with the public, and the public don't have a very much of a different idea of what the project should be. I mean, this project was originally going down Ventura Boulevard and going up to the 210 freeway, but after working with the community, we changed the alignment and we changed the mode. So you never know what you can run into when you're out there. Oftentimes, it's a better idea than what we have here. As far as the connections, we had 4 alternatives. Now that we're down to 1, we're going to look at how the buses will interface with those stations and safety first, look at the best, safest way we can do it. And yes, it's part of the first mile, last mile, part of that exercise.
And then also the housing part?
One of the big comments we got out there, more negative comments, people are really worried about gentrification, very worried about gentrification. I know that both Councilwoman Mary Martinez and Monica Rodriguez are talking about putting some things in place to ensure that the community is not displaced. We're speaking from we have done real alignment that has inflated the value of homes in close proximity to stations, so they're very aware of that. There are a few people at community meetings that said, are we asking for what's in this place to us? I'm very worried about that. And Councilman Fuentes was worried about that before he left office as well. So it's something that our boards are very aware of. They're talking about different policies. It's a higher pay grade than my own, but I just know there's a conversation taking place. We're building this alignment because it's there in place right now. And so why is it we don't want this place to be now? So that's about what I'm saying about it. Yes, sir.
Question. So along Raymer, I believe, that's where MSFB is going to be.
Yes, sir.
There's an existing ped crossing.
Why is that there?
You know why that's there? You know the one by the recycling center
I know
and the
exactly.
gentleman's club that I've
It's
never
huge,
been to?
standing in the middle of nowhere, where nobody ever want to go. It's like there's a couple $1 million.
Is that a mystery? Yeah, it seems like it'd be really expensive to serve.
First time I saw that, I was just
No.
amazed, and that's about 5 years ago. And that's kind of interesting. There was a big floral arrangement saying, rest in peace, Jesus, and it's been upkept for the whole 5 years right there, which it's like a sign, don't go across this bridge. And it's just covered, that's a huge edifice, and I have no
Oh, yeah,
idea why
it's
they built it there,
huge.
because it's way back there.
Yeah, there's nothing there. Unless you want to go to the recycling or gentleman's club. It's perfectly located for
Yeah,
both.
it's a mystery. Probably a mitigation to somebody's complaint on the rail line.
Yeah.
There's no housing on either side, construction on both sides.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What are you looking at the options of bicycle lanes? I've heard that there's not to be bicycle lanes along Van Nuys, looking at different ways to go off Van Nuys, because I kind of look at Van Nuys as a multimodal community in the future. As far as
Really hitting on a nerve, because I'm an avid bicyclist, and Joel's an avid, more so than I, he runs every single day. We wanted bicycles to be a part of this project. And on Van Nuys, we have 100 feet, that's including 10 feet of sidewalk on both sides, so we had 80 feet to work with. We had 3 lanes to work with, and we introduced a 26-foot squat down the middle, something had to give. What we say in the environmental document is there's going to be a class 1 bike lane. This will stay in place along the Metro Orange line, along the 6.7 miles of Van Nuys Boulevard. There's just not room to accommodate a class 2 bike lane and 2 travel lanes. The only way we could do it if we went down to 1 travel lane in each direction. So what we say in the environmental document is that they're going to be welcome on the trains, and they can bring bicycles on the trains. We are going to have bicycle parking at each one of the stations, and there's going to be a class 1 bike lane along the San Fernando Rail right-of-way. And I'm also working with the city of LA to talk about some adjacent streets like Kittredge or Tyrone, where there might be some opportunities. But again, those streets aren't like Van Nuys. Van Nuys goes all the way through, whereas those T intersections get to the Metro tracks, what about that pedestrian crossing. So we're looking at it. It's just there's so much room that you have. So,
yeah, because I think one of the things is trying to get into business. And, you know, if you're going to use your bike, you know, how are you going to get to the business if there's no bike lanes?
yes, I absolutely agree. And we went over the drawings 100 times trying to figure out a way to try to find a way to accommodate bicycles.
Well, I think it's not also bicycle, but I also think scooters are going to be something that big thing because of all the backlash that they're getting Bird and Line scooters and everything. So you're kind of seeing like people are sort of like gravitating these different types of transportation that it's not even a car.
We have a whole department of sustainability and alternate modes of transportation, and they're looking at Project 2 and trying to figure out ways that we can accommodate people other than transit and automobiles. They're very interested in skateboard, bicyclists, and for motorized transit. Yes, sir.
Let's see, two questions of a less colorful nature. One is the PUC. That's a judge, is that normal?
Assigning a judge at this point in time, that's part of
Yeah.
the new process.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's because it's new. Then
Yes.
the other thing is, there's a nice new bike corridor along the San Fernando, that segment. Is that gonna be wiped out and replaced?
No.
Because the right of way is pretty constrained through there, can you fit?
No, it's not really constrained, it's constrained when we go to the city of San Fernando.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
there's enough, well, I'll take that back. Metrolink is looking at a project right in Rockford to double track theirs.
Exactly, yeah,
And if they do that, there might be a problem going to the city of San Fernando.
yeah,
But they don't have construction funds. For our project, we can build enough room for our two tracks, Metrolink, and maintain a class-1 bike trail. If they double track, then that class-1 bike trail will probably move to Truman or San Fernando Road,
Okay.
class 2.
and then on a similar note,
And that's
recall
why to the
there's
city of San Fernando. The city of LA is
Okay.
there on the right way.
then on a similar note, Brighton to Roxford, there was a memo issued recently, or a board report, saying that that project was being delayed because the interface with this project.
I've been told that we are a dog that wags its tail. We're the big boys in town. We're gonna do our project, decide where we want to put our tracks, and then tell them where they have room to put their tracks.
Okay.
So we come first. We have funding, they don't.
Yeah, you have funding. Sure, yeah. Money talks. All right, thank you.
That's it.
I'm from the valley, and I'm looking at this project as a whole redevelopment project, in the sense that you're affecting a lot of businesses there on the corridor. I don't know how housing is gonna affect that too, but once you start doing that, the whole area is gonna be developed. And I'm just talking, I don't know if you're aware, but that's called an opportunity zone. A lot of those properties all along the side. And that's a big thing with Phil Washington pushing the housing in the TAD areas. So if you look at this as an entire opportunity development, it would be a lot of bang for the buck and ladder shape. And you have something called Van Nuys Airport there, and it's time to convert that thing to a national airport too.
I'll write that down.
The point is that the whole development project is a good one.
So Washington's very obviously interested in transit-oriented communities and development as bugs and nurse stations.
I like mine.
Yes, sir.
So, did you probably said, but I just passed me by, what happens to the orange busway? Does that turn into a light rail eventually?
I'm gonna measure in, plan, but it's way out there, which means it talks about advancing it. Right now, they're just gonna grade separate some of the major intersections, like Van Nuys, and just pull the zip busing make those intersections a lot faster. And work with the city of LA, see if we can argue for a little bit more priority and other civilized intersections. If you go back to the environmental document that was done for that project, it was supposed to go from Water Center to North Hollywood in about 30-35 minutes. And it's actually taking a little over an hour before you get the operational efficiencies that are designed. Less buses can carry more people by operating faster. So we're working to be more efficient, but it is in our plans to convert to light rail. And I mentioned that we environmentally cleared a bigger maintenance storage facility than we needed for this project. The idea that the north line might maybe one day soon convert to an LRT.
I'm just struck by the fact that years go past, and more than $1 billion of funding comes in. And at the end of the day, the valley still doesn't have a subway. It has a busway with its stops at basically every major street. And it's going to have a light rail that stops for red lights. And we're calling this a mass transit system. But compared to what we have right next door, it's not. And how did you manage to get people in the valley to give up on the idea of getting a subway?
$3.5 billion difference, that's how.
Yeah, the
Money.
More than that.
like money talks and just the cost and, I mean, our first idea is BRT, which is the cheapest alternative, and can we make that work? And then we work our way up to what we can make work. And yeah, the densities are pretty high there, with the roadways quite wide, and things are getting better. On the blue line, it slows down to a crawl, it's on Washington Boulevard. The gold line in East LA, it slows to a crawl on First Street and Third Street. But we're doing a good job of negotiating with the city of LA, and they're seeing the benefit of how many people are taking off their roadways by using mass transit to get us full priority treatment. And there might be a day where we can operate almost as fast as the subway. I mean, they're never be completely grade separated, but it's amazing how fast $140 billion goes when you start dividing it up. It is counting. And everybody wants subway. We can't give subway to everybody, but it's what's currently in place and what we can make work, and can we make a lesser cost project work for the valley. This project was originally be BRT at $170 million. But AT really wanted to rail, and the project was stalled until we could find enough money to make it LRT. So it is a much bigger project than we originally envisioned. I don't think I went out there as a salesman trying to sell people on non-subway. They wanted rail, and we tried to design a rail system that would operate as efficiently as possible. And again, the biggest choke point in Sherman Way and Roscoe. And we did do a subway for 2.5 miles, but that only saved about 1.5 to 2 minutes of travel time by doing that subway, because of the amount of time it takes you in the model. It was how long it takes people to go to the station, go down the escalator, and then wait for the train to get on the train. And then having 3 stations in a 2.5 mile proximity, the train can't really gain that much speed before it has to stop again. So a lot of the efficiency improvements that would be garnered by doing subway will last by having so many stations. And some of the things that would be gained by getting greater priority, we can operate more like subway. I mean, it's going to be dedicated. The gentleman asked if we're going to share the roadway with cars. No, that would make our operation efficiency atrocious. By getting a dedicated roadway, our operating times aren't that far off. Subway would be 8 or 14 stations. But ideally, I'd like to do subways that we don't have enough money to. Yes, sir.
2 questions. Is Metro going to be the lead agency for the acquisition of the right-of-way impacts and outreach? And second, is there going to be some type of like a business solution center that they did for the LAX expression line for the remaining businesses that are not going to be asked to be relocated, but are going to get affected for this, getting rid of some of the parking in front of their businesses as Van Nuys is?
I think we set precedents with the other projects of the Business Solution Center, and I think, even though right now it is not written anywhere, I'm sure there's going to be something, and it's been discussed internally, what's the best way to implement this creatively, so there's no way we're not going to do that. Also, your other question, I'm sorry, I'm having.
Sorry, yeah, it's all right. The acquisition and the outreach, would that be Metro doing that, or would that be?
We'll be taking a lead, but I'm sure we'll hire a consultant to support us. We do have a real estate
So,
department.
yeah.
But there's going to be quite a bit of acquisitions, 37 parcels plus some parcel acquisitions, so I'm sure that we're going to support it. Yes, sir.
Yes, does the current planning include a Metrolink stop station at Van Nuys? Part of the overall plan?
It includes a station on in the median of Van Nuys Boulevard in very close proximity to the Metrolink station. As you know, as you get there, it kind of dips down to go underneath the Metrolink tracks and back up, so we have to recess the station back a little bit. But so it won't be seamless. People will have to transfer, and it will be 50, 75 yard walk. For the Silmar San Fernando Metrolink station, we'll be able to do side-by-side stations. Ventura will not be as direct a connection. The Ventura line with Metro. So you have Ventura, Metro alignment, and Antelope Valley.
In the, how much coordination, I know you mentioned this before, but between your project and the extent, whatever's going to end up going to UCLA north of town. You guys working together, or how's it?
There's several projects, they have several consulting firms, and the horizontal responsible manager sits right next to me, and, yeah, we talk almost every day about some of things for his project, some of the things I talk about my project, things I'm hearing not from Mike see about his project. But, you know, not all done with one consulting firm and the same partners, they're done separately, but yeah, we try to coordinate this as closely as possible.
I'm just wondering, if you have 37 parcel acquisitions, how many relocations have you determined by the intention?
For the 37 parcel acquisitions of the maintenance and storage facilities, so that shouldn't have the right-of-way impacts for.
The relocations. If you have 37 parcels
Right.
that need to be acquired, what's our time? So will there be
There's
relocations?
roughly be, there definitely be locations.
And where you show it?
Yeah.
The other line, what's the other one?
Yeah, yeah, these 37 parcels, which are on Raymer, Keswick, we've probably talked to about 20 of those businesses that want to talk to us right now about timing. We told them that it's probably going to be not going to go for another year and a half, and then the relocation process would probably take a year and a half to 2 years. Some of them will be low-hanging fruit where they say, yes, we're ready to go, we can be bought out and move on, retired or whatever. And some of them will be a little more difficult, so their employees live a miles and they need to be relocated. Most property owners have specific zoning requirements that allow the kind of businesses that they do. But for 37 parcels, and for each one of them, we'll have individual needs, wants, desires, and we work with each one of them to best address what they want and need us to do.
Were there no other acquisitions or
There's
relocations?
This is the bulk of it. There's some San Fernando owned property that they're kind of excited about giving us to us because they have to do a 3% match, and it's a 3% match, and they've already given property than cash. And then we need transponders. Transponder about 1 every mile for those locations.
Traction power.
I'm sorry?
Traction power.
Traction power stations. So how about, those about every mile, but those are usually in parking lots for taking special acquisitions, and those places, just like that, yeah.
And then where you're transitioning from Van Nuys to.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
The turn from Van Nuys Boulevard to San Fernando Road, just like we did, yes, there's about 10 parcels that we will be acquiring. One of the neighborhood legal services is voicing their opposition.
But it's all shown in the environmental document.
Yes, it is. Am I answering your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just one, excuse me, one quick question. This pertains to Van Nuys Boulevard where the BRT is currently. The BRT project is proposing to go from Van Nuys to Sepulveda as a aerial all the way, right? With the
Metro Orange Line supposed to be?
well, for the Orange Line,
Yeah.
the proposed new improvements has from Van Nuys to Sepulveda, you basically got that aerial grade separation. And you were showing in a previous rendering, you've got, your Metroline BRT above, right? And the station below. The question I have is basically contract or scope demarcation. So if one contractor's working on the aerial portion of that, is the other contractor's working on the actual at-grade portion for East San Fernando Valley? How does Metro picture that one large station going together? Is it going to be a separate package for that station, or is one contractor going to have the bulk of it while the other one's just focusing on the guideway?
The Metro Orange Line grade separation has, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, been put on hold until we determine exactly where we are going to be located. We don't want them to design any pillars or anything else that would have to be relocated for our project. So we are trying to fast track the FSFIR, and part of that is to best determine how to connect with the Orange Line, where our station's going to be, how wide it's going to be, if there's going to be any additional right-of-way acquisitions, and impacts to traffic. So we are trying as fast as we can to do some conceptual engineering to determine exactly where we're going to be, where the station's going to be located, to give it to the folks designing the orange line so that they can design around it. I wish we could design around it, but we complement each other. We show them what we want, they show us what they need, and we meet in the middle. Because there's some other factors. After that station, we need a crossover and tail tracks. And what are those going to be? We don't want to put a new event out to work because we don't want to impact oxygen. So those are the little things that we're going to work out during the final. And those are some complementary studies that will be done concurrently with the final. But yeah, it's two different consultant firms, but we're working in coordination to make sure we don't do any throwaway engineering.
Yeah, that's why I just found it curious, because the alignment's stacking right on top of each other. Originally, you had that proposed station right on top of one another. It made any sense to have two separate stations.
That's right. But the opportunity is there to do a seamless connection and make it a lot more convenient to our passengers, our riders. And as operations like to keep reminding me, we plan things in 6 months, it's going to be operating for the next 100 years, so we need to do it right. So we're trying to take our time and do it right. Ready?
So you're the big dog, whether it comes to Metrolinx, Sepulveda, or Orange Line BRT.
$1.4 billion costs.
What's that? Yes. Yes.
We got a full fund, so yes, right now, we're getting a lot of attention about it. Hence this crowd. Thank you so much.
So a couple months ago, Fernando and myself gathered the neighborhood council transit leads of the various councils up and down the corridor from Van Nuys, Panorama City, North Hills East, Sylmar, Coima, and Arleta. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was we had an alternative to dealing with the San Fernando right-of-way issue, which is that we'd be willing to sacrifice the San Fernando connection if we got a San Fernando Van Nuys infill Metrolink station and the double tracking on the Metrolink. So to have the 15-minute throughput, on the Metrolink line and have an infill connection at Van Nuys Boulevard in San Fernando, we'd be willing to
The city of San Fernando is very excited about it going to their community, and
they weren't when we had this discussion.
They're kind of iffy because they're worried about the right-of-way acquisitions for them in their industrial area. We learned that we could avoid most of those. And also, we're very excited about the connection to the Antelope Valley line. Supervisor Antonovich and all of these in their office was a big champion of people coming down from the Antelope Valley, Santa Clarita, connecting us with it, and shopping the job opportunities that
Oh, for sure, we're not inside of Antelope Valley. We want wards of the Antelope Valley. We want that double tracking it right in Roxbury. That was one thing they were willing to give us the direct rail connection on East San Fernando to Sylmar Station, to San Fernando Station, if we got Van Nuys and San Fernando Station.
We did some drawings that we believe that we can use this with two Metrolink tracks if the bike and Roxbury does succeed in getting funding, and our double tracks. The bike line to the city of San Fernando would be sacrificed, but we can accommodate all four of them, make it through that Metrolink station, and create a good sense of place, like we're existing and have stations side by side, and some good landscaping. There's not a whole lot of room for landscaping and artwork on Bad Boulevard, but we're kind of shoehorning it in. But when it ends, we have some opportunity to do something different for everyone. Yes, sir.
To follow up on his question, so one of the ideas that was discussed by those neighborhood council members was the possibility of having a co-located Pacoima Metrolink station at Van Nuys and San Fernando where the project station would be. So I just want to make clear that given that you've been able to identify a way to accommodate the city of San Fernando's right-of-way needs, it obviates potentially the alternative that we were trying to come up with. But nonetheless, there still is community interest in having a connection to Metrolink in Pacoima. So I just wanted to let you know.
And we actually looked at that really early on. We have the Sun Valley Station, I believe, just like a mile and a half, 2 miles south of that, and the Burbank Station, and then you have a big distance from that station to the next reference station. I mean, the cities do their stations, but they try to space them at 5 mile intervals. And that wasn't as desirable because the two stations so close to each other. But it was something I was looked at, and yeah, it has some promise, but we didn't think it was the most desirable. And then talked about it, we didn't get a whole lot of that much interest. Yes, sir.
I just want to say is we do have neighborhood council support from the 6 neighborhood councils specifically identifying a station at San Fernando Road and Van Nuys Boulevard. In addition to that, that's the 8th busiest transit corridor in Los Angeles County. There is a significant amount of people that use the bus north and south on Van Nuys Boulevard. And what a configuration that does not have a Metrolink station at Van Nuys Boulevard. And we were only looking for a non-parking station. We were looking for a station much like the urban rail with no parking lot. So you could get, because if you were doing the 3-way configuration, you're getting off Metrolink. If you needed to go north on Van Nuys Boulevard towards the top half of Pacoima, you'd have to take a train, get off at the Silmar station, then take a bus to Van Nuys Boulevard, or wait for a train, and then you'd have to then transfer to a third entity, which is the bus. And so you've got unnecessarily complications. We were looking for a low-cost station, and they did do an infill station at Bob Hope Airport or Burbank Airport that doesn't keep with that 6 mile length, and we all understand it, but because of the fact that Van Nuys is the street, it's not like it's Paxton, it's not like it's one of the other north-south streets. It is the key street that has the transit ridership, and we think, and got community support, that it absolutely should have a Metrolink station along with the urban rail, your project station. And they should be within some sort of distance. You don't have to walk 5 minutes, fine. But you shouldn't have to go 2 miles north to Silmar to come back to Van Nuys Boulevard. I mean, Santa Clarita Transit did that same kind of thing. They used to stop the bus at Silmar Metrolink, then they moved the bus to North Hollywood, so people that were taking the bus from Silmar would have to then take a bus down Van Nuys Boulevard to North Hollywood and take the bus back up to Santa Clarita. And that's not good public transit. So we wanted to clarify that there is a need, there is community support, and we can get it if you need to see it once again, but it is there. We've had cooperation with neighborhood council, the Chamber of Commerce. There would be council member support because we've met with the council. So we just wanted to put it out there.
Well, I mean, this project isn't a part of the Metro. We're dealing with them, but we don't even say with the location of the stations. You want to talk to Regional Rail. I don't know if you know it, but Van Nuys and San Fernando Road is a high accident location for them, so we're looking at possible to do a great separation from Metro trains.
And we have no problem. You know, you're absolutely right that
there's a lot going on at the intersection right now.
You know, that was one of the stops that got quad gates. There was deaths, and yes, I'm familiar with all the things, but we had some pushing to get that intersection reconfigured because of the turn radiuses, and there was all sorts of technical issues at that location. So yes, the answer is yes, you would. Grade separation was there. I don't know where it is on the Union Pacific Metrolink chart, but it is a place for a grade set.
And that's one reason we recessed our station back away from that intersection, because of the high gating, trying to avoid other past that intersection. It's high volume and lots going on there. Metrolink tracks and San Fernando Road and Van Nuys and everything else. We're a little bit away from that. Anybody else? Thank you so much for your interest.
Thank you. I just wanted to say to everybody, just think if you can about potentially sponsoring us for our meetings. We have, like I said, 4 meetings more scheduled. There'll be, Walt, when you send me the PowerPoint, we will have a copy of the PowerPoint that we have everybody in this group's email, and we will send you the PowerPoint, and there will also be video of the same, so you'll be able to watch it once again. So thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. Have a great evening and a safe drive home.
And we'll have next month, speakers